Hey YouTube, this is The Art of Prepping. Just wanted to bring up the topic of non-drug related types of addictions and how this would affect you or loved ones in a long-term survival situation, be it a long-term grid down scenario, maybe it has to do with some type of pandemic, whatever it is that actually puts down the infrastructure or limits the amount of infrastructure that you have access to. And this is going to be critical because there's a lot of people that may not be on drugs per se, but they are addicted. And so what are some examples of this? I know people personally. I don't know a lot of them anymore because I move away from these kind of people, but just through friends of friends, I know them, not directly like as a friend of mine, but there are a lot of people, and especially if you look at the genre of what's some of the most trending videos on YouTube, they're video game related. So there's people who literally have an addiction to the stimuli that you get when you play video games. So that's something to be very much concerned about. The second thing I think it would be of concern would be the stimuli that you get addicted to when you're on the web. And this is the only one that I would have to probably work on myself, just because I spend so much time, and I know that after going a few hours without being on the web or surfing, because I have a very, very curious mind, and so I'm always searching for more information. And there are times I take a day off, as I talk about, and it's actually kind of difficult because I keep on thinking about things I want to look up, and I got to remind myself, say, no, I'm going to take a break from that. So basically, internet addiction, maybe social media addiction. And also checking your phone. There's a lot of people I know that check their phones constantly. I have my phone with me most of the day, so it's not like I need to check it. I can hear if it goes off or not. But there's a lot of people, nonetheless, check their emails, check voicemails constantly. I know even some family members that have done that for decades, and it's just really not the healthiest thing because you're letting those things control you. Now, the last thing I would say, and may not be as big as it used to be, just because I think most people use the internet or other means of communication and stuff to get some of their entertainment or their news or so forth. And that would be the radio and TV. Most specifically, though, I think it would be like cable TV. People, and this might be for people who have a lot more time on their hands, or they don't really have a lot of things that are pressing. They don't have a lot of time-consuming activities. They may not be pursuing a lot of larger goals. They're just kind of, and I don't want to be, nasty about it, but maybe they're just kind of surfing through life and not really being too proactive. They're not really building something or working toward a bigger goal. And so these individuals try to burn up their time, and they try to distract themselves. And that's what you'll see as a theme through all this. There's a lot of distraction people get used to. And when you're so used to being distracted, when you don't have that distraction, it's actually distracting in and of itself, and you'll feel very off, and you'll feel like something is very wrong because you don't have that stimuli, and you're not being, going back to that word, distracted from the environment that supposedly and somehow you've created some kind of inefficiency to deal with over time. So be mindful of these types of addictions. Obviously, we know that the drug addictions probably within days or weeks are going to be a major problem. People are going to act very, very erratic, and there's going to be all kinds of extreme examples of violence, and who knows else what's going to happen when you have potentially large swaths of the population going through withdrawals after the medication runs out. Like I said, it could take even months for some people, depending on how much medicine they have stockpiled. But there's a lot of people who only have days or weeks of reserve of their medicine, and in that case, within days or weeks, you'll have major withdrawals that will have to be dealt with, maybe on a community-wide basis, because they may be threats to the whole community, depending on how they act and what they do. And those are some situations that will be on a case-by-case situation, but if there's a nurse or a medical doctor in that city or town or on that street you live in that can have access, you can get access to for these people, that's good. But a lot of these, longer, more serious types of emergencies, they're not going to be just easily available. They're probably going to be really pressed and to help and they'll be moving around. They'll be really, really busy. Or they may just be at home trying to help their own family to survive. So, this is something that we have to consider how to deal with these people. It could be something as simple as just trying to calm them down, and maybe that could help. Maybe they just need a transitional period to get out of that and to detox. And so maybe you just have to watch them, make sure that they don't go into shock, and maybe they just have to sleep it off for a few weeks. It could be just from days to weeks to sleep it off. Or it could be as extreme as you might have to restrain the individual. Members in the community may have to restrain and put them in a padded environment the best as possible and care for them until they come out of this, if they can safely. Unfortunately, there are some withdrawals that will actually end up in death, because there's some things out there that are that hardcore, and the body can't just transition by themselves most of the time. And that could also be things that may not give so much erratic behavior, but maybe things like blood pressure medicines could kill you when you just go cold turkey. Now, in terms of the transition we just spoke of, so this transition, though, if you're doing things now that are a little bit extreme, maybe you do 10 hours of video gaming a day on a day-to-day basis, pretty much nonstop, and you've been doing it for years. Obviously you're not going to just say, okay, I'm going to go cold turkey and just stop doing video games. But instead of maybe 10 hours tomorrow, maybe you be mindful and you set the timer and you do 9 hours, and you do that for a couple of days. Then you set it down to 8 hours. You do that for a couple of days. Maybe it takes 3 days before you can get that kind of in a rhythm, so you don't feel like you keep on needing more and more. And you keep on paring that down, is what I'm saying. It may take weeks or months to get it down to a very, very low number, at least in your mind. Maybe it could be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour a day that you play the game. And then you fill the rest of your day with more meaningful things, because I think that we all know that's not going to be probably the best for most people to sit around and play video games. And there are those people who are professional video gamers and they make a living on it. These are very few in number. So I'm not going to say, just like people who make videos on YouTube are usually laughed at by family members, and they're misunderstood. And people are just like, well, what do you do for a living? And they're like, well, I make videos. And you're like, oh, you mean on YouTube? Like, do you get paid for that? And, that kind of, ignorance. And so this is the kind of thing that I think we have to be mindful of, is that, yes, there are some people who have skills and they have these passions. And if video games your passion, that's not the worst thing in the world. But at the same time, if you're talking about trying to be more adaptable and not have addictions, you may want to try to find that sweet spot. Maybe for you could get away with 4 or 5 hours a day doing video games. I don't know you. So all I can tell you is that maybe for the average person, you probably want to do quite a bit less than that. And you might want to get to the point that you can actually replace things with more productive type of activities. And how you do that is up to you, but you can just transition to those. I would have a big brainstorming session, maybe make it over several days, and just have a nice, big, thick list of things that you want to accomplish in your life, as we talked about before. And prioritize, and maybe just start going down that list of the things that you're not doing because you're on the video games constantly. You may even want to interface with other family and friends and say, how do you see my living and behavior? Do you think it's excessive? And what are some of the things you think that you would like to see as well? Not that you're living and doing things for others, because you got to live your own life, make your own decisions, but it's good to get feedback from people who actually know you and that have concerns. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for watching. Thanks again for hitting the like button, for subscribing, for leaving those cool comments. And just remember to find balance and to transition out of this slowly. If you are, somewhat guilty, and you would know, I'm not calling you out, but if you know you're one of those people that have an imbalance and you're overdoing something, then, and I'm guilty too. I'm working actively right now to cut back on my internet time. I like to get it down to maybe between 1 or 2 hours a day. I think that I'm doing almost double that right now. And so I think it's good for everyone to kind of have a good balance and variety in their day. And only you know what that's good for you. Some people just work too much. Some people just don't do enough meaningful work at all. So you can actually have a lot of weird combinations of scheduling in your life, in your daily activity. And no one really knows what's really good for you except you. You know how you feel at the end of the day. Do you feel like you just conquered the world, or do you feel like that you're the biggest loser? How do you feel? Do you wake up in the morning and go, holy moly, I can't wait to get in my car and go to work, or I can't wait to do my own, maybe you have your own business, do my own business, or I can't wait to do this. You know, do you kind of wake up in the middle of the night excited, or do you wake up in the middle of the night with dread that you have to do something? You know what you have to do. You know if you have to make changes, or if you're in the flow of life, as I call it. So yeah, so thanks again. Hope everything's flowing real well with you, and we'll catch you real soon.